The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, welcome. We're going to get started here in just a second. Actually, in about a minute. Hope everybody's excited and has questions to ask today. All right, I'm going to keep my eye on the Facebook page in case anybody has been over there asking questions. Okay, looks like we're all good right there. Let's see. All right, so while we're waiting, let's do a quick tech check. So those of you who are here, looks like we have Catherine and Christy, Melissa and Sharon. Would you guys type in the question box and let me know if you can hear okay and if you can see the slides? And then we know that all is well in the land of technology. And that's really what we want. I want to make sure all the tech is working. Perfect. Thank you, Melissa and Christy. Awesome. Good deal. All right. Well, it looks like it is 3 o'clock straight up, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, you guys. This is our quarterly Q&A. It is your opportunity to pick our brains, get some questions answered, get unstuck, or whatever you might need help with. That's what we're here for. So you have me today, and joining me are both of our amazing grant experts. We have with us Leah Holt. Leah is experienced in not only grant writing, but also she's really good at systems and being very organized and has quite a bit of experience with volunteers as well. And we also have with us Susan Caldwell. Susan is an experienced grant writer and really good at program development. Plus, she has a background in PR. So let me do this. If you guys have specific questions, you want to type those in. While you're doing that, let me just give Leah and Susan each a chance to say hello and add anything that I missed that they're really good at that you might ask questions about. Leah, do you want to start?
Hi, everybody. No, Sandy, you did a good job. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And please take this opportunity to ask us whatever questions you want. Doesn't necessarily have to be grants related. If it's programs related or you're working on a budget or anything that's just kind of driving you crazy right now that you have questions about. If you are working on a grant, feel free to ask us any questions about that, whether it's really, really specific or if it's just a general question you have. So the door's open. All you got to do is walk in and tell us what you need.
Awesome. Very good. We're so excited that you're here. Susan, you want to jump in and tell everybody what kind of things they can ask you?
Well, I'm glad to be here and glad to see everybody else here. And these are always fun because you never know what somebody's going to ask. But I can, of course, answer anything grant related or program related. Same thing with Leah with budgets, grant research, just about anything that you all could probably have a problem with. One of us, I'm sure, will be able to help you.
All right, perfecto. I would say so. I think between the three of us, we can cover just about anything. It's amazing when you get a couple or three people together who have quite a long history of working in fundraising. If there's a crazy thing out there, one of us has probably experienced it. We have some pretty good laughs about our experiences at times. All right, so one of the things that I did want to start with today is in thinking about the world of grants. We just went through another grant cycle, and there were a number of our Project SmartSprout folks who applied for the grant, and hopefully everybody knows what I'm talking about. Every quarter we offer a $1,000 grant, and that comes right out of our coffers here at Get Fully Funded. And we do it for a couple of reasons. We do it, number one, because we like giving back and we really believe in what you all are doing. And the other reason is because it's a learning opportunity. It's educational for you. It gives you a place to practice your grant skills, particularly for those of you who maybe haven't done a lot of grant writing. And we like to think that it's a fairly safe environment. You can apply for the grant, and if you win it, great. If you don't win it, we'll give you some feedback on that and tell you how to strengthen it for next time. So we've just come through this process, and I think the three of us while we were excited to see those of you who submitted, there were a handful that were pretty good, and there were a handful where we just thought, oh my gosh, there's some things that you need. So what I thought we'd start with is just giving everybody some feedback in general on some of the things that we saw. And I'll go ahead and kind of kick this off, and then I'll give Leah and Susan a turn to chime in. As Sharon's asking, how many applicants do we have per quarter? It varies. We actually went back and looked at this not too long ago. I think first quarter we had about 17. Second quarter, I think about 15. This time we only had 12. There's only 12 people who applied. We did see that, or we think at least, that people are paying attention to what we're teaching in SmartSprout, because the quality across the board of the grant applications was much higher this time than what we've seen in the past. But as far as where some people may be missing the boat, number one is just detail. And here's what I think. Actually, I was thinking about this yesterday afternoon because my brain never shuts off. And I was thinking about how that saying that sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees is very true. And I remember being this way. I remember being in a situation where I needed to write a grant or write something for the website or whatever about my organization. And because I knew it inside out, upside down, backwards, forwards, and 6 ways to Sunday, I would forget that the person who was going to read it didn't know as much as me. And I would leave things out. So one of the things that I will suggest to everybody is, and doesn't matter if you're talking about a grant or an appeal or something you're posting on your website, you've got to put yourself in the shoes of the person who knows the least about your organization and think about what they need to know. Write to them. Don't assume that that we know where in the world your organization is. Don't assume that if your organization does something that should be pretty common, like rescuing animals, that people know all the ins and outs of that, because the funder that you submit to may not know all that. So that was the one thing that was my big takeaway. And subsequently, and I love that Christy Wary is here. Christy was our winner this time. Christy really nailed it. And I'm actually going to share, Christy gave me permission to share her application. I'm going to put that up probably tonight or in the morning. Christy got the detail. She got the detail. There wasn't anything that about it that any of us went, wonder what she means by that. And so that's the thing that I want everybody to get, is you just can't assume that people know. You got to get the detail. Leah, what would you add as far as just general suggestions based on what we saw that people can learn from?
One of the biggest issues that it seemed like we continued to see was, like you said, Sandy, not enough detail, but very specifically, not providing us the information on the impact that you're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say the information, so you're like, what's the estimated number of people or animals that you're going to serve? How will that change the situation or the condition that they're in? How will it make the opportunity for their environment better for them? Also, detail around your budget. So it's not enough just to say, we will use the $1,000 to fund this program and it will help people. That is vague, that is very general. We're interested in seeing the details behind that $1,000. So if you're putting together a project and that $1,000 will fund the entire thing, then tell us, for instance, $500 of this $1,000 will go toward X. So whatever that is, and $200 is going to be earmarked for this, and the remaining dollars are going to be used for this very specifically. So give us an idea of what it is that $1,000 is paying for very specifically. So impact numbers and the budgets are two of the biggest places where it seems like people are consistently missing out and not providing enough information. And we really like seeing that, because we want to know, of course, how many people that grant, or how many animals that grant is going to affect. And of course, just where the money is going to go, meaning that budget detail.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the other thing to keep in mind when you're picking what you want to apply for, let's say you have a project and it's going to be $100,000. And we saw this summer with our Inspired Fundraising Retreat grant. There was somebody that was renovating a facility, and I think literally their budget was about $100,000 or more. And they asked for our $1,000 to go toward that. And as a funder, we were kind of like, ugh. That didn't feel good. It was like our money's just going to be a drop in the bucket. We're not going to really be able to make an impact. And as a funder, we just couldn't get excited about that. Except that if they had said your $1,000 is going to help us renovate this one specific room that will be used for this specific purpose, like maybe it was the clinic where their school nurse is going to be able to take care of sick kids, and it was going to be used for, and then they just fill in the blank, and it was going to be $1,000. We would have been way more interested in that. And I hope you guys are getting that. The more specific, the better. And I think that's a great point, Leah. Susan, how about you? What would you add? What did you see just kind of in general among those grant applications that we can offer everybody some feedback on?
The things that both of you all said were some of the things that I was thinking about too. Just an example, without mentioning anybody in particular, there was one that had asked for a funds to do a meet and greet area for a animal welfare organization where the doctors could come and interact with the animals and determine if that was a good fit for them. And which we know is an important thing for adoption, but what wasn't there was telling us what the current situation is. Like, was their lobby too small? Did they not have a lobby? Were they having to meet the animals in the parking lot? Or were they having to go back into the noisy, loud kennel area where all the other dogs were barking? There wasn't a clear picture about why that was so critical and why they needed that. We just didn't know what the current situation was. And it's just it goes back to what Sandy was saying about don't assume that we know something, even though we do a lot of animal welfare and we certainly understand the importance of something like that. The fact is we really didn't know what their situation was. So it could be a lot more critical than what it looked like, but we didn't have any way of knowing that. And then the other thing, and just reiterating what you said, Sandy, I think that you really need to think carefully about two things. One is, the impact, to think about when you're picking a project, where you can spend $1,000 and have the most impact. If I had a $100,000 grant, I'm going to stop and think, okay, what can I do with $100,000? If it's $5,000, I'm going to think about what can I do the most with $5,000. So you can have a big impact with $1,000, but you've got to put some thought into, like a lot of the grants we got were serving just one person or just one animal. And that hurts a lot of grants out there. And we always tell people it's about the numbers, And sometimes, the more impact you can have broadly, the better your grant application is going to have a better shot. So just kind of reiterating what you guys said, really, about those two things.
I think that's a great point about asking for something that's just going to serve one animal or one person versus many. And so here, I want you guys to hear this. We're not necessarily saying don't do that, but you have to really know your funder and what they're interested in. I'm sure there are some out there. I'm sure that I've applied for some that would help one or two or a handful of animals. And that's what they're all about. The more you can get to know the funder and what they're looking for and what they want to do, what kinds of things they want to fund, the better. So doing a little research and really understanding them can go a really long way and can help a lot. And I think one of the things we're kind of hinting at here that we can pull right out is to really understand what the need is that your project is going to address and clearly articulating that in the grant, whether it's an application, proposal, whatever. So that goes to Susan's point of, if you don't clearly describe the need, then that meet and greet area, we don't understand the significance of it if we don't know what the need is. And maybe you have some statistics, or maybe you don't. Maybe you have anecdotal evidence. Maybe you have stories you can tell that show if an adopter can spend 15 minutes with an animal, they're more likely to go ahead and adopt and take that animal home than if they only spend 2 minutes or something like that. Even if you don't have the stats, but you have some stories and you kind of know that that's the case, share that. Put that in your proposal. It'll really help. So that's kind of where we are on the grants. Hope that's helpful for everybody, and especially those of you who are listening to the recording. We really intend that process to be educational, and I'll tell you, I can tell that some of y'all are really paying attention, because honestly, we deliberated long and hard about who we were going to give the money to this time. Christy's grant was really good. We had another one, Angela Cersei from Res Dog Rescue, also was really, really good and had her numbers covered, and her story was very good. There was another one that was just a step behind those two. So you guys, we worked for it this time. It was not a simple, easy, clear choice necessarily. So I know that there's some of you that are really paying attention to understanding the numbers and clearly explaining what you're trying to do with the money. So good job for those of you who are doing that. And those of you who are not quite there, I'm going to share Christy's grant so you can have a look at that and see what she shared and how she shared it. And hopefully that will help you. Okay, let me go on to some questions. You guys are already typing some things in. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And by the way, I love, love, love when SmartSprout members show up and fully take advantage of this. When you show up and you're ready and you're asking questions, that makes me so happy. If you think about if you think about, and some of you know this, what it costs to hire us privately to be able to get on the phone with us one-on-one and ask these questions, it's a lot of money. And so this is your opportunity to be able to do that without paying the whole lot of money. So good job, those of you who are here and asking questions. All right, Sharon O'Connor is asking a couple of questions. She wants to know, could we look at a letter she wrote to encourage people to take advantage of the tax credit program? Yes, Sharon, shoot me that to my email. We can pull that up and have a look at it. Her second question is, can I make the tax credit program the Giving Tuesday campaign? So for example, getting the congregation to find 10 people each to participate in the Georgia tax credit program. You could. I don't think that's strong enough in and of itself. So that could be the how you're going to go after it. But I don't know. So if I was one of those prospects and somebody reached out to me and said, hey, why don't you give to, and I just went to totally blank on the name of your school, give to the school to get the tax credit in Georgia, I might be like, whatever. There has to be more to it than that. Like, your donation is going to help do this. Remember that it's about impact, not necessarily meeting your budget. So it might just be a tweak on your messaging. Giving Tuesday campaigns that I have seen that have been successful, and I love that Christy is here. Christy Wary has had successful Giving Tuesday campaigns where she has tried to raise money to feed X number of kids lunch in her programs in India. What I think happens with that is you have a very specific project. You're creating a whole by telling people we have 50 animals, we have 16 kids waiting on scholarship, we have whatever that is. When you get real specific like that, you can see that it's going to work really well. The programs that I see struggle are the ones that say our goal for Giving Tuesday is $10,000. Please give. Well, what do I care about your goal? I want to know what the money is doing. So you might be able to use that tactic of having people in the congregation reach out to their friends, but I think you need a goal that's going to set their heart on fire, or a reason to give that sets their heart on fire, and then I think that you can be successful with that. Leah or Susan, do either of you want to weigh in on that question?
Well, I think that it's got to pull at people's heartstrings, especially with Giving Tuesday. I think because you know, the visual parts of Giving Tuesday are so important. You know, if you can post a video or a story or multiple stories or quotes, testimonials, things like that is what gets people to move. And there's so much competition on Giving Tuesday, so you really got to put your best foot forward and put your most compelling stories forward. And, you know, that whole idea of the matching gift, I mean, a lot of people who have the matching gift for Giving Tuesday do really well because people, you know, they tell people you give $1, it's gonna get doubled. So that's a really, really important thing for Giving Tuesday too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. There's a whole strategy behind Giving Tuesday. One of our clients is, and you guys have all probably heard me talk about her before, Becky Roy at Draft Gratitude. Becky's really active in our animal welfare program, and so Becky and I have worked on her Giving Tuesday campaigns a couple of different years, and she's very clear about every year. She's very clear about what she's raising money for. She starts really early. She always has great emails, great graphics, great messaging, and subsequently she always hits her goal. But she has a plan. She's probably putting her plan together now so that she can start promoting Giving Tuesday in about a month, because she'll start emailing people a couple of weeks out, and that's what works. You can't just wake up on Giving Tuesday and go, oh, I think we'll just post something on Facebook and watch the money roll in. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. Okay, let's go to a question from Catherine. Catherine says, how do you handle belated thank you letters? Well, that's a good question. Well, so part of that's going to depend on why are they belated and how belated are they. So if they're thank you letters that should have gone out, let's say 2 to 3 weeks ago, just send them, just get them out like right now, today, before you go home, get it done. If they're later than that, I think what I would do is I would tweak it just a little bit and make it part thank you letter and part update. And depending on what it was for and how late it is, you may have to add an apology to it. Just kind of depends on what it is. Leah and Susan, thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it depends on how belated the belated is. You know, if you're talking 6 months, I'd be calling that person up trying to get them on the phone and, you know, just do some schmoozing with them there. And like Sandy said, just, you know, giving them an update. We've been so busy. We've got all this going on. You know, if it's a couple weeks, you know, I don't know that the funder will really notice it's been a couple weeks. You know, and just your regular letter, you know, reaching out to them should be fine. But somewhere in the middle of all of that, you know, like Sandy said, is really good just to, you know, still get the letter out for sure. And, you know, just tell them what's been going on and keeping them up to date with things and profusely thanking them again and again for donating to your organization.
One of the other things to do with that, Catherine, is to draw a line in the sand and don't beat yourself up over it. Well, this is actually for everybody. It's so easy when something goes off the rails to really just beat yourself up and go, oh my gosh, I've screwed that up. I messed it up so bad. And I find it really helpful to just draw a line in the sand and go, okay, we did not do that well in the past, but today is a new day and we're going to put something in place so that that doesn't happen again. And that's really probably the most important thing you can do at this point, is put something in place so that letters always go out on time.
that's getting me on my process organization soapbox there. So yeah, when something like that falls through the cracks, generally that means that there's something that's not there. There's not a process in place, and so if you can sit back and create your, some people call them workflows. I don't know, Sandy, I don't know, is there another term out there in the world people use, but basically says when this one thing happens, it's going to trigger a series of actions that need to take place. So, you know, you get your donor check in the mail. So then what does that do? That triggers you guys having to put, you know, this in the accounting system. It triggers you having to put, you know, if you have a donor database, that you're having to log this in the donor database. That's then triggering you to pull these letters through and go through the whole process. So yeah, generally when something like that falls through the cracks, there's a little something off with the process there. So just take a look at that process. You know, if it was just a one-off, that's fine, but it's always good to just kind of come back, reassess the process, make sure everything's working well. And then, you know, just if you got a team, you know, some other people out there working with you, just make sure everybody's on the same page with you and that they're all following the same workflow.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I first started doing those kinds of things, the thank you letters, it was so easy with a million things going on to keep putting that off. There was, you know, just putting out fires and all the things that go on. But what I learned was that stewardship makes fundraising so much easier, and it had to become an absolute priority because I learned that I sat there and I started at that organization, and we had no donors. And after a while, of course, we built donors, you know, a pretty good following. And so I learned that the more stewardship I did, the less I had to work to do the front end fundraising. So it's because it's so much easier to keep a donor than to get new donors. And I could just it got to the point where, because of the stewardship of making sure they got thank yous and were thanked different ways and invited to things and all that kind of stuff, that those people kept giving. And then I could spend my time getting new people and getting bigger gifts from the people that were giving, because of that stewardship made the money to continue to flow in. So it really needs to be. I always said, if you cultivate and you stewardship, the ask in the middle is easy. So make it a priority. I don't know why, again, we don't know why it was late, but the making it a priority is so important.
I think that is so spot on, Susan. And I'm with you. My mind immediately also went back to a time when I had 1,000 things on my plate, and thank you letters was one of them. And I knew that I needed a system, but it just seemed like I could never remember what I needed to do. So for me, it was as simple as, if I just could remember every Friday I needed to look at the system and run thank you letters. Every Friday. So then all I had to remember was that needs to happen on Friday. And then I figured out, if I just put a note to myself on my calendar every Friday, like run thank you letters, it never fell through the cracks. So part of that, and this goes to what Leah was talking about, part of it is knowing yourself and what's going to work for you, and finding some way to put that system in place so that you never drop those balls. For some of you, it's going to be put a sticky note on your desk. For others, it's going to be like me, just put it on your calendar. For others of you, you need something else. Whatever works for you, just use it. It doesn't matter. There's no perfect system. The perfect system is the one that gets used, frankly. So hopefully that's helpful for everybody. I love you ask a simple question and we wind up giving you like the really long answer with 6 tangents.
And we could probably keep going for another 5 to 10 minutes on that.
Yeah, that's how we roll. I think the beauty of it, though, is I think all three of us have been in that place. We have been there. We've been there in that spot of, I've got 1,000 things to do, and that's just one. And how do I get this thing done? I know it's important, and I know it needs to happen, but how in the world do I get it done? So the good news for all of you listening is you don't necessarily have to figure it out the hard way like we did. We've all got the battle scars to prove how we figured it out the hard way. We can offer you these shortcuts, and hopefully you'll find something that sounds like it might work for you. Okay, we have another really good question from Catherine. I bet others are going to be interested in this as well. How do you recruit a volunteer coordinator when no current volunteer wants to do it?
Ooh.
How do you recruit a volunteer coordinator when no current volunteer wants to do it? I'm going to tell you what I think, and then Leah, I'm going to go to you because I'm sure you're going to have a ton to share here. If your current volunteers are all busy and covered up, which I'm going to guess they are, that's how it normally is in a small organization, you may need to keep casting your net to find some new volunteers to bring in. The very first thing that I would do is write a job description for that volunteer coordinator spot. I would treat it as if it were an employee or a staff person, even though you're not going to hire an employee or staff person. If you treat it with a lot of seriousness, you will do a much better job of finding somebody who's going to be a good fit. And if all your current volunteers don't want to do it, that's fine. You're just going to have to cast a net to go out and find new volunteers who want to come and serve your organization. What 1,000 things do you want to add to that, Leah?
Well, you went exactly where I would have went first. So I would have said you have to start with the job description, because otherwise the people you're trying to tell about the jobs don't have a clue what the expectations are, what the time commitment is, or what the responsibilities are exactly. So then, yeah, once you have the job description, you need to work your networks. So like Sandy said, maybe you got to cast your net wider. So it's not enough, maybe, if you're just talking to the people within your organization, maybe you got to get on Facebook. Maybe you got to get on Twitter and tell the world out there, hey, everybody, we're looking for a volunteer coordinator. And these are the perks. These are the benefits of what you're going to get by doing this. So if it's an unpaid position, because some volunteer coordinator positions are paid, but if it's unpaid, these are the type of perks you're going to get. Perhaps, they get invited to an annual event that you guys do, and they can come along with that. Or, maybe they get a t-shirt or whatever it might be. So just tell them what the perks are about that. So work your networks, tell them what the perks are and what they're going to get out of that. What other networks? So, you can even put like a sign on your door, kind of like help wanted. You can even do signs like that. You can, generally you can post it. You can go to any type of volunteer resource organizations that you might have within your area. So for instance, my previous job life, I was with a volunteer resource agency, and we worked with community partners, aka nonprofits and organizations who came to us, and they posted their volunteer positions with us. So we were able to do that for them as well. So working networks, social medias, volunteer resource agencies, word of mouth is always good. So, you just start telling your volunteers, hey, we are looking for a volunteer coordinator. It's okay if none of them are interested in it, but maybe they have a friend that wants to do it, or, maybe their mom's interested, or whomever. So work those networks, and eventually you'll find you somebody. It'll just take having that job description and those perks and benefits and all that in place to entice somebody to want to do that job.
And I can add to that in the what I think about is times when I've had a volunteer in place for something and they didn't fit, or they didn't have the skills, personality, time, whatever it was, to do the things I needed them to do. And there's nothing harder than to take a volunteer, especially if they're a donor. People run into this with board members of what do you do when you have one that's not being effective, and how do you, let them go from that position, especially when they're a volunteer or a donor. And so I think on the front end of thinking, what do I need this person to do, and what skills are they going to to be able to accomplish it? So, and to take the time to, cultivate the people that you can identify that can meet those requirements. So then you end up with a great coordinator, hopefully, that you don't have to backtrack on. This is a different little perspective.
Well, I think what we're all getting at here is you got to take it really seriously. This is not something where you can say, oh, well, I just need to get a volunteer coordinator, and you identify somebody, tag them, and say, good luck, see you later. That is not going to work. You got to take it really seriously. especially because if this person is going to be recruiting and interfacing with volunteers, you want them to represent your organization really, really well, right? You want them to take it seriously. You want them to play full out so that the rest of your volunteers have a great experience. When people have a good experience, they talk about it in the community. When people have a really crappy experience, they talk about it in the community. And you don't want that. You want people out there talking about what a great time they had volunteering with your organization. All right. Let's see. Let me go to the next one. Catherine's asking, how do you streamline thank yous in PayPal? So I'm not exactly sure what you mean here, Catherine. If you want to ask something clarifying, go for it. But I'm going to tell you, here's what I think you're asking. So overall, you definitely want to have your system set up so that no matter what way somebody gives, it kicks off some kind of thank you. Doesn't matter if they're giving online and they're using a credit card, they're using PayPal, they're giving offline, whatever. So we all know we've got to thank people. And there's got to be a system set up for that. If you're struggling with PayPal, we may want to see who else in the group has their PayPal nailed that can talk to you about how they did it and how they have it set up. If you're talking about the language that needs to go into the thank you, that's a whole different thing. We can look at what that looks like, and I would love to know a little more about that question. All right, so we'll see if Catherine wants to type in a clarification, and then we can circle back to that. All right, let me see what else we got here. Oh, Catherine has another good question, and this is going to be really relevant, I think, for year-end and Giving Tuesday. How best to get donors to get their company to match their donations? Well, the easy way is just to remind them. Put it in your newsletter occasionally. Put it in your thank you letter, like it could be a PS, it could be a really small thing at the bottom. Hey, check with your company to see if they match employee donations. Many companies do. I find that that's the kind of thing that if you just remind people that that's a possibility and give them that little nudge to go check it out, that a lot of times they will. Leah, Susan, anything to add to that?
I'm just thinking about one of our clients out in California that has a animal welfare organization, and they have like quadrupled their corporate matching program. And they went and did a lot of research about what companies in their area. They only serve one county, so it wasn't horribly hard to do, but about which companies did. And so they even made contact with the companies when they had someone that gave a gift so they could get it matched. So they were really proactive about it. And gosh, it's more than half their budget now.
Wow.
And that's in California. I mean, there's a lot of big companies out there, so it's a little easier probably as far as getting the numbers up, but very proactive about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's, like Susan said, depending on how much time you have, which may not be a lot, but if you have somebody who can research that and see, which companies are these donors working for, you figure that out, and then you can research to see if these companies do have a matching program. And if so, you can even send personal emails to these donors if you have something like that, and just say, hey, or letters even, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Donor, did you know that your company matches donations? Just kind of give them the parameters of what it does. To learn more about this, go to your company's website. Here you go. Throw in a copy of that link to the company's matching program website. So even something like that would help as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and keep a list. As you get a company, you get a donor that has a match with their company, just kind of keep yourself a running list. That's what I did a couple of different times when I was a development person, and then I knew there weren't a whole lot of companies in the Knoxville area that did matching, but I knew that like Kimberly Clark did, and there were 2 or 3 others, and so that was pretty easy. And a lot of times it wasn't a big deal. One of the banks did it as well, and we had a board member who was from that bank, and they had a program that was slightly different, but it was a really simple form that I filled out. It was no big deal. Sometimes there's something you have to do. Most of the time it's something that they have to do, but honestly, remind them. Just remind them. And you can, like Susan gave that example, you can wind up with quite a bit of extra money just from the matching.
It always amazes me when I'm doing grant prospect research and I'll see a foundation and they give to a certain philanthropy issue that I'm interested in, and then I will get, and if it's a company, I'll get on their 990, and you'll see a lot of $250, $10, $100, and I know that that's corporate matching. More than likely, they are matching employee gifts, and there will be thousands upon thousands of dollars listed like that. So it's out there. Just got to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I just got to think of volunteers too. Even these volunteers with their companies, a lot of times companies will provide donations on behalf of their employees who volunteer. And so a lot of times,
that's so true. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of times your volunteers, they can do the same thing. They can just get in touch with their, HR department or community relations, whatever it is, and let them know that they, if the company does this, and let them know that they volunteer. Now, there might be some eligibility requirements that the company requires. So, they might require that they do it so many hours or anything like that. But yeah, so you could even tap into your volunteers doing matching programs with their companies.
Yep, a lot of times those are called dollars for doers.
Mm-hmm. And that includes your board members too, not just your regular volunteers out there doing general stuff. So your board members as well.
Yep, yes it does. Very good. Okay, let's see. Sharon O'Connor asking, can I run the same scholarship campaign that I did last year? Yes, you can. And I know what Sharon's talking about. For Giving Tuesday last year, Sharon did a very successful campaign to raise money for scholarships for kids at their school. Yes, you can. How do you keep it new and exciting? Freshen it up just a little. Don't worry too much about, like, it's got to be all bright and shiny and so different. A lot of people are not going to remember the exact details from last year. What you could add that you probably have this year that you may not have had last year is stories, more stories you can tell about some of those kids who benefited from the scholarships from last year, or from the parents, or maybe even from teachers who had children in their classroom that were on scholarship. And that's what you want to do, is talk about the difference that it made for those children to be part of those classrooms and how it was made possible by the scholarship.
And Sharon, you're in a unique situation because you deal a lot with, you're a private school, but you have a lot of international diversity within your school. And so it's always helpful, one thing is to highlight that, that I think you work with, I don't know, I think it's something like 10 or 15, maybe even more countries. And so I think that's a really unique thing for you guys that you could, like I said, that you can highlight.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree with that. That's something that you can really hang your hat on, because it does make you very different from a lot of other schools. All right, so the bottom line is there is yes, you can run just about the same campaign last year. I would be really tempted to do that just because you had such good success last year. So you know that it works. You don't have to sit back and wonder, is this going to work? It worked last year. It should work again this year.
What's that saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that. All right, let me move on. And Sharon, I saw your email. Let me get through a couple more questions and I'll go pull your letter up. We'll have a look at it. Christy's had somebody contact her and say she wants to get more involved. Awesome. Christy says, I'm not very good at delegating and thinking of ways to use volunteers outside of an event. She's a donor and a business person and says she's got good business sense and managing projects. Any thoughts on what I could delegate her to? Okay, so this answer is going to be for everybody, not just for Christy. when you have a small organization and you need to grow, one of the best ways you're going to be able to grow is to get other people in to help you, clearly. So what you might want to do is start making a list of stuff that you do that you don't necessarily need to be the one to do it in order for it to get done. That you could teach somebody else to do it. They could do it just as well as you. You can put some quality control in it somehow. Make sure that they're getting the results that you want, and that frees your time up to go do other things. So then the real trick becomes, what are those things that you could get off your plate and give to that person? And I saw the second part of that question is that person does not live in your state, so she's somewhere else. How do you get a virtual volunteer to be helpful? Same answer. You got to find things that need to be done that you don't necessarily have to be the one to do, but somebody needs to do it. Leah, Susan, what do you think?
Well, if you're small, the first thing that came to my mind was thinking about the thank you letters, which is something you would want to make sure they could do. But I mean, if you desperately needed somebody to do that, maybe asking them to come up with a process for that. If that's what they are good at doing, is organizing, and that's something that you could kind of test the waters with them to see what ideas they had. That's just the first thing that came to my mind, just because we were talking about thank you letters earlier. It's something that could be done. They don't have to be present to come up with something like that.
Thank you phone calls go right along with that, and those are super powerful to get from somebody.
Here's like I was thinking, if I heard right, so this is a donor that's like a business owner, a business person, or very business oriented, and they're good with projects. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So what this is screaming to me, and I mean, now this depends on what level or how deep you want to allow this person into your organization, because it could get a little sensitive. But when you have somebody who's very strong at managing projects, lots of times for smaller nonprofits, they are founded because somebody has a great idea to go out and fix a problem that's out in the community. And so please don't anybody take offense to this, but when I say people's heads are up in the clouds, like they are focused on trying to do anything and everything to fix a solution. When you have somebody like this who is very, type A, so it's somebody who is kind of like me, very process oriented, detail oriented, they are very good at taking a look at your organization as a whole and breaking it down into systems and compartmentalizing things, which means you could allow them to maybe take one aspect of your organization and do an assessment on that and come back to you with ways that you can improve processes and procedures, or ways that you're at risk for what you're doing, whatever that risk may be, and ways to improve things. So that's one way of doing it. We're talking about the thank you letter. So perhaps you allow this person maybe to do an assessment of your processes and procedures in handling donations that come in. So, let them take time to talk to your staff, your fundraising staff. So whether that's one or two people or a couple others, whatever that is, allow them time to talk with these people and see how you can strengthen that. Or maybe they come back to you and say, you know what, you guys have everything going, nothing needs to change. And you can go, boom, I know my fundraising is good to go. And then maybe if they impressed you with what they found, maybe you then go on to the next thing. Well, let's take a look at, I don't know, policies and procedures, maybe, whatever that might be. So definitely somebody like that is good to allow them to look at entire systems and suggest improvements and structure.
Yeah, Christy, as Leah's talking, I'm sitting here thinking about, and for the rest of you, Christy's program works in India, and I got to go with her to India last January, and I'm remembering some of our conversations around the difficulty in getting numbers back from some of your folks in India. And I'm wondering if this might be something to chat with this donor about, kind of give the donor the overview and see what they think. See if they see a different way, something that you could put in place that would make it easier for you to get those numbers back that you need from your folks on the ground.
That's a really good idea. Right, I guess you know that. That's what you get paid to do.
Oh, Lord.
Oh my gosh.
But no, I'm being serious. That's a really good idea because if that were me, like somebody asked me about that, well, we're having a hard time getting our numbers. So we were talking about information management. Can you help us with that? I could do that remotely, and I could be all over that and be able to give you like all kinds of feedback on that and ways to help you improve that process.
Yep. Yep. Christy, the other thing that I'm thinking about is your fundraising event that happens locally, well, or even the virtually event either. I wonder if that person, since they have a project management experience, could help you with either some structure for how those events are planned, or maybe they know some tools for engaging people who are working on that project. I mean, it might be interesting from a 10,000-foot view to talk to that person about those events and ask them where they see that you could streamline things or make it simpler, or maybe there's some different skills that you need in terms of committee members that might be super helpful. Yeah, cool. Christy says she likes it. Good suggestions. Good, good, good. Okay, looks like we got just a couple more. This is going to work out beautifully. You guys are doing a great job, by the way, of showing up and asking your questions, and I love that. That's what this is all about. Okay. And by the way, so just one last thought on that. Volunteers can be amazing. Volunteers can bring so much to the table, and some of you are groaning and rolling your eyes, I know. Because volunteers can also be a pain in the neck. But part of it is about being ready for them and being really clear what you can use them to do, giving them a good experience, and they can add so much. They can add so much to what you're doing. They can add so much to a donor's experience. They can have their own great experience. And it's really just, it's about thinking through it, getting organized, and making it happen. And it can be amazing. Let's see. So Catherine was clarifying her question about PayPal, and it's more about how to get PayPal to automate, so not so much the language itself. So does anybody here who's on are any of you using PayPal and feel like you really have the automation set up well? And Catherine, by the way, what donor tracking software are you using? That might be helpful to know. PayPal in and of itself will send out a little something. It's like a receipt. They're not particularly warm and friendly. What I like to do is just warm everything up. If that's all you have right now and you can't do anything else, okay, perfect. You're using Little Green Light. Perfecto. There is a way in Little Green Light to connect that. So when that PayPal donation hits, it goes right to Little Green Light, kicks out the thank you, and it goes. I'm going to guess if you get on Little Green Light's knowledge base on their website, and you can literally Google Little Green Light knowledge base or Little Green Light PayPal, and you will probably find the article on their knowledge base that tells you exactly how to create that automation. It's one of the reasons I love Little Green Light is they have a really, really nice knowledge base online. And then if that doesn't work, I know a couple of other people who use it. Becky Roy is one of them. And I'll be happy to ask Becky exactly how she has hers set up, and we'll find out and make sure that you know. You shouldn't be struggling with anything that's automation. You know, those tools are they're so powerful, and most of us barely scratch the surface of what they're capable of doing. All right, very good stuff, you guys. Let me switch over and find Sharon's letter. So we're going to look at that. Hang on. Sorry, you guys have to see my crazy email. Although it looks better. I've been really whacking away at email and trying to get it down to, I get really uncomfortable when there's more than about 10 messages in my inbox. And I think I have it down to 4 right now. I'm really excited. I know some of you are rolling your eyes at me. It's the little things, people. It's the little things. Make me super happy. All right, so this letter, let's see. I want to take just a quick look. I want to see kind of how big it is. Okay, this is the one inviting people for the tax credits. I can tell you right now, I do not like that black on blue. That's hard to read. Anything that makes it hard to read is a bad thing. All right, so this looks like a fact sheet. where we have a photo. There's Sharon front and center in that picture. That's awesome. Leah was talking about the diversity of the school. Look at that picture. That is some really awesome diversity right there. I love that. All right, so we've got a fact sheet and the statement of faith. Look at the kids. That is awesome. All right, so just that gives me kind of an overview of what we're looking at. Let me go back and have a look, see what we've got. All right, so thank you so much for your interest in supporting Still Waters. There we go. I knew it was something water and I could not get the first word in my head earlier. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right, so what I like about this front, I like that it's very short and it goes right to, gets right to the point. I would do a couple of things with that. I would make these logos much smaller. People get confused. Logos confuse people. I don't even know that I would put this this Apogee logo on there. For even when you explain it in the letter, people are not going to read it and they're going to get confused. So I would, honestly, I would probably move that school logo up to the top. And then at the bottom here, I'd probably say something about read, continue on or read more to find out how your donation would change lives at Stillwaters. And then whoever's going to sign the letter, you'll need to add that down at the bottom. Just not a fan of this for a couple of reasons. I like the text. I like that you've got short paragraphs and you've got headings in there. I do like that. Not a fan of the black on blue and not a fan of all this being centered. All that text being centered is very difficult to read. So I would left justify that, have the headings and the paragraphs. What I really like about this is it's almost like an FAQ. It's like a frequently asked questions kind of thing. What is the tax credit? How does it benefit? How will it benefit me? How does this work? How can I participate? Yeah, so I think honestly, what I would do, just get rid of the blue box, left justify it. Everything else looks good to me. And then you've got some facts about the school, which is really good. And your statement of faith, which I think is fine. I love, love, love the pictures of the kids. I think that's awesome. Leah Susan, what do you see?
I'm not wondering on these, like on the FAQ page and these pages, would it look better to have the logo on there instead of where it says, because here, maybe it's just me, but it looks like Waters and Learning is mushed together. And so I'm just curious. Yeah, I mean, is it, go ahead.
That could be a font issue. They could be using a different font than what I have, so that could be what's going on there.
Gotcha. Yeah, as long as that's clean, I think that would look better.
Yeah, Sharon's saying, yes, it's a font issue.
Okay. Yeah, I love the picture of the kids. All those pictures. Those are cute.
Yeah, overall, I think this. Go ahead, Susan.
Oh, I was just going to say on the letter, it just when I first saw it, what jumped out at me, I like the way it starts, but at the same time, if it started out, there's something about the purpose of writing the letter. I love that statement says for every tax dollar you redirect to Stillwaters, you get 100% reduction of your Georgia tax. That's such a good statement. I almost want to move it up further in the letter, because the people that care about reducing their taxes, they're going to, who are the people who are going to want to do this, and that statement's going to maybe make them act quicker. That's just what I saw. I just like that sentence and the way it's stated, and just think it's effective, and maybe move it up further in the letter.
And you could turn that into a question, right?
Yeah, you could.
You could turn that into a question, and I mean, immediately, if I was going to read that, I'd be like, did you know that you can, reduce your Georgia taxes? I'd be like, what? No, I didn't. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. So overall, Sharon, I think this is not bad at all. I think you've done a good job with it. So just some little tweaks like that. And I saw your other question. Yeah, I would take that Apogee logo off. I feel why you did that, because you wanted to acknowledge that partnership. But I've seen stuff like this before. People get really confused by too many logos, and I'd want to keep it really simple, because you don't want anybody getting confused and not reading this or not taking action on it. I do think this is a good strategy for you. I've worked with an organization in Virginia that did a promotion around tax credits, and it worked really, really well for them. And for those of you who, like us, are in a state where you don't have any kind of tax credit, that doesn't happen in Tennessee, then don't worry about it. If your state doesn't do it, don't worry about that at all. But if you are in a state where people get credit for their state taxes, this is a really good approach. It's a good strategy. All right, let me circle back to one last comment that Catherine was making about connecting PayPal and Little Green Light. Does the gift automatically get entered into Little Green Light? Yes. Yes, you should be able to connect PayPal and LGL so that it automatically records the gift and automatically emails out the thank you / receipt. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is go look for the how-to on setting all that automation up, get it tested, and make it work. And the other thing, Catherine, if you want to, go into the Facebook group and just post and say, who here has successfully connected PayPal and Little Green Light? I need to ask you a question. Like, take advantage of the resource, because I guarantee you, of all the people who are in SmartSprout, there is somebody, at least one somebody, who has done this. And if nothing else, I'll get Becky Roy to help you with that, because I know that she knows how to do it. All right, you guys, our time is up. Boy, this has flown by today. Thank you so much for being here. Leah and Susan, thank you so much for being here and being so generous with your knowledge. I appreciate you both.
Loved being here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. It was really good. Lots of different things to talk about.
Right, we've covered the gamut today. All right, so next week we have another webinar. Next Thursday, Whitney Bishop will be joining us for strategic planning for beginners. So be sure and mark that on your calendar. If you have anything you need in the meantime, the Facebook group is always open, and we will see you there. Bye, everybody.